When a person wounds a gentle soul, they rarely understand the magnitude of what they've done. Not in the moment, not while their pride is loud, and certainly not while they believe they've won. Only time has the power to pull back the curtains and show them the truth they were too blind to see. And now, as life begins to echo back the consequences of their choices, they're realizing far too late that they damaged the wrong soul. It always begins quietly, a shift in the air, a strange heaviness in their spirit, an uneasiness they cannot explain. They wake up with a weight they didn't have before, and part of them knows exactly why. Because life has a way of returning to each of us what we have planted, sometimes gently, sometimes painfully, but always faithfully. And those who once mocked your kindness, dismissed your loyalty, or exploited your love, are finally beginning to feel the cost of their action. What they took lightly is now the very thing they cannot escape. There exists a certain kind of soul in this world, rare, luminous, steady. A soul that loves with sincerity, forgives with depth, and gives without keeping score. A soul that carries its own quiet universe of warmth and truth. When someone harms such a soul, they believe they have harmed something weak. They never realize they have harmed something sacred. They mistake gentleness for softness, patience for passivity, silence for surrender. But the truth is far from their illusions. Because the soul they chose to break was the very soul that once held them up, prayed for them, wished them well, and saw the good in them when no one else did. And now that light they took for granted has faded from their life. Now they search for what was once freely given, your loyalty, your presence, your forgiveness. But the door they used to walk through without knocking is no longer open. They reach for you in their thoughts, but memory is the only place where you still exist for them. And memory is not a place where they can return. It is only a mirror that reflects what they lost. Pain changes people, yes, but regret transforms them. It's a quieter suffering, an ache that settles deep in the conscience. They may hide it from the world, but they cannot hide it from themselves. Because every time life confronts them with emptiness, with betrayal from others, with the loneliness they once condemned you to, something whispers inside them. This is what you did to someone who would never have done it to you. That whisper grows louder with time. It becomes a shadow that walks beside them, a reminder woven into the fabric of their days. They remember your kindness at the exact moment someone else is unkind to them. They remember your loyalty when someone else abandons them. They remember your patience when they find themselves begging for another chance from someone who refuses to give it. And that's when the realization strikes, the quiet, devastating truth that they damaged the wrong soul. They pushed away the person who loved them without conditions. They broke the heart that would have protected them. They wounded the spirit that would have chosen them every single time. Now they stand in the ruins of what they destroyed, searching for redemption in a place where they no longer have the right to stand. What they thought they could replace, they cannot. What they thought they could break, they did, but only for a season. Because your soul is not a fragile one. Your soul rises. It heals. It grows brighter after the darkness tries to smother its light. And that is the greatest irony of all. You became stronger from the pain they caused, while they became smaller from the damage they inflicted. They're realizing too late that the loss they created is the loss they must now live with. And you were realizing that some people were never meant to walk with a soul like yours. Your value was not diminished by their inability to see it. Their inability simply revealed who they truly were. In the end, the damage they caused will be their burden, not yours, because the soul they tried to break was the very soul God designed to rise. There is a strange blindness that settles over people when they believe they can wound a gentle soul without consequence. In the moment of their arrogance, they feel untouchable. They convince themselves that their actions are small, that their behavior is justified, that your pain is insignificant. They walk away as if the story is finished, as if the impact of their choices won't echo back into their own lives. Yet life has a rhythm, a quiet, unwavering rhythm that never forgets what was done, even when the world moves on. And in time, those who hurt a sincere and loyal soul begin to feel a weight pressing against their peace, a weight that whispers of seeds they once planted carelessly. At first, it is subtle. They don't name it regret, because regret is a heavy word and heavy words are difficult to carry. Instead, it arrives as a slight discomfort, a strange tension in their spirit they cannot explain. They wake up feeling less certain of themselves. They lose interest in things that once brought them pleasure. There is an unexpected hollowness in conversations, an unspoken restlessness in their quiet moments. Something inside them is unsettled, and though they try to dismiss it, the truth lingers beneath the surface. They wounded someone who didn't deserve to be wounded. People often assume that consequences come, loudly, dramatically, unmistakably. But life rarely delivers them that way. Life is far more poetic, far more intricate. It returns to us what we have given in forms we cannot predict. The smile they once ignored becomes the warmth they now long for. The patience they once took for granted becomes the virtue they desperately need. The loyalty they mocked becomes the very thing others refuse to offer them, and slowly they begin to see the unfolding of a truth they once refused to acknowledge. The soul they harmed was never weak, only pure. A gentle soul carries a quiet power, one most people underestimate until it is gone. Such a soul absorbs offense without retaliation, listens more than it speaks, and loves in a way that feels like sanctuary. But when this soul is hurt, when it is pushed away, when it is discarded, the absence it leaves behind is not empty, it is haunting. Those who cause the pain expect life to continue as before, but the universe does not honor such expectations. Instead, it begins to reveal the reality they never paused long enough to understand. They damaged the wrong soul. The realization does not strike all at once. It arrives in pieces, through circumstances that mirror their own behavior. Someone they trust disappoints them without remorse. Someone they confide in pulls away without explanation. Someone they rely on shows indifference when they are vulnerable. These small wounds accumulate, and as they do, something inside them shifts. There is a moment, a quiet, piercing moment, when they recognize the reflection, what they are experiencing is what they once made you feel. This recognition is painful because it forces them to confront a truth they spent so long avoiding. Your heart was honest. Your intentions were pure. Your loyalty was real. And instead of cherishing these gifts, they treated them as burdens, or worse, as guarantees. They believed your presence was permanent, your forgiveness automatic, your understanding endless. They believed your soul was theirs to injure without consequence. Only now, as life unfolds its lessons, do they understand how wrong they were. The heaviness they feel is not punishment in the dramatic sense. It is the natural return of energy, the moral gravity of the world correcting itself. It is the soul's internal warning system telling them that something vital has been lost. It is the beginning of accountability, the first whisper of awareness. They hurt someone who was sincere. They damaged someone who only ever wished them well. And now, too late, they are realizing that the harm they caused has not left them. It has followed them into every quiet corner of their life. And though they may try to move forward, though they may attempt to bury the memory, something in them keeps turning back. Because people who hurt a gentle soul always look back. not out of pride, but out of the aching awareness that they let go of something they will never find again. They are only now beginning to understand the magnitude of what they lost, and the truth they avoided is finally catching up to them. They caused damage they can't undo, and life is showing them why it matters. Life has an extraordinary way of mirroring back to people the energy they once carelessly poured into others. It does this slowly, almost silently, shaping experiences that force a person to feel what they once dismissed. When someone has caused harm to a pure-hearted soul, the return of that harm does not arrive as punishment. It arrives as revelation. They begin to encounter situations that subtly reflect their own past behavior, moments that make them pause and remember the very pain they once planted in someone who never deserved any of it. It usually begins in the spaces where they feel most confident. Interactions with friends feel different. Connections they perceived as secure suddenly feel fragile. They are met with coldness in places where they expect warmth. Conversations feel strained, as if something meaningful has slipped away and cannot be recovered. This shift is unsettling, not because others are intentionally hurting them, but because the universe is orchestrating reminders of the impact of their actions. It is as if life gently turns them toward a mirror and says, "Look, understand, see what you once made another feel." People often forget that peace is deeply connected to how we treat the hearts entrusted to us. When someone breaks a gentle soul, they imagine the story ends with the heartbreak they caused. What they underestimate is the lingering effect on their own spirit. Life does not let anyone walk freely away from the harm they cause, not because it demands vengeance, but because it demands growth. And growth rarely arrives without discomfort. The very pain they once overlooked begins to find its way into their own experiences. The emptiness they feel is not random. It is a reflection of the space you once filled. They may deny it aloud, but deep inside something recognizes that the warmth they now crave used to come from the soul they dismissed. The support they instinctively expect from others is the support you once provided effortlessly. Yet now, others offer none of it, and they struggle to understand why. In the quiet moments when the busyness of life fades, they feel the sting of being unseen, unheard, misunderstood. It is the same sting they placed upon your heart, and though they try to shake it off, the ache lingers. Nothing compares to the realization that you once mistreated the only person who genuinely cared. This realization doesn't rush in like a storm. It creeps in through tiny fractures of regret. It arrives when someone they trusted betrays their confidence. It arrives when someone they valued walks away without explanation. It arrives when they seek compassion and find only indifference. The weight of these moments builds slowly, reminding them of the gentle heart they once wounded without remorse. They begin to replay memories not because they want to, but because their conscience demands it. The things they said without thinking, the pain they caused without reflection, the loyalty they dismissed without gratitude. Each memory returns with a new voice, a voice that whispers, "This mattered. You were wrong. You should have cherished what was pure." The whisper grows louder with each new disappointment they face, and slowly the truth settles in their chest. They are experiencing the echoes of their own choices. What makes this realization especially painful is the understanding that kindness is not easily replaced. They meet new people, hoping to find someone who carries the same warmth, the same sincerity, the same devotion. Yet every connection feels shallow compared to what they once had. They begin to understand the rarity of the soul they damaged. It dawns on them that not everyone forgives deeply. Not everyone loves patiently. Not everyone stays loyal through storms. But by the time this understanding reaches their heart, the gentle soul they hurt has already stepped into healing. leaving them behind with the lessons life insisted they learn. Regret becomes a silent companion to their days. It walks with them, not to shame them, but to remind them of the cost of their choices. They are beginning to see that the pain they once dismissed was actually a warning from life itself, a warning they ignored. Now the consequences unfold quietly, steadily, teaching them through personal experience what empathy could have taught them through wisdom. And in the end, what they feel is not random misfortune, but the rightful return of what they once gave. Many people move through life unaware of the rarity of a sincere and gentle soul, misinterpreting its quiet nature as fragility. They mistake patience for passivity, softness for weakness, and kindness for naivety. It is only when they lose such a soul that they begin to understand that what they damaged was not something delicate, but something sacred. A soul like that carries a depth that cannot be measured by the surface, and those who harm it often learn too late that they struck at something far more powerful than they ever realized. Gentle souls are not common. They are crafted through struggle, faith, compassion, and an inner quietness that the world cannot manufacture. These souls feel deeply, see beyond appearances, and love in ways that transform the lives they touch. When someone dismisses or abuses such a soul, they fail to recognize that they are not dealing with weakness, but with someone who has chosen to respond to the world with goodness. Despite everything they have endured, that choice alone makes them strong in a way most people cannot comprehend. A person who harms a gentle soul often does so because they have not encountered this kind of strength before. They expect retaliation and are confused when it does not come. They expect bitterness but receive silence instead. They expect emotional chaos but are met with grace. Instead of recognizing this as a sign of spiritual maturity, they interpret it as vulnerability, and that misinterpretation becomes the beginning of their downfall. Hurtful actions taken against a heart like that do not disappear into the air. They leave imprints, echoes, on both the giver and the receiver. For the gentle soul, the pain becomes a teacher. For the one who inflicted the pain, the consequence becomes a mirror. Over time, they begin to see their reflection in the very actions they once excused. When they encounter someone who treats them with indifference, they suddenly recognize the expression. When they experience the sting of being undervalued, they remember the moments they dismissed your worth. When they are met with coldness where they hoped for warmth, their heart echoes with the memory of how they responded to your kindness with carelessness. The realization hits slowly, not all at once. It begins with a quiet discomfort in their conscience. They start questioning their own choices, replaying memories they once ignored. The conversations where you tried to express your feelings. The moments where your silence carried sadness they refused to acknowledge. The tears you hid because you didn't want to burden them. These memories grow sharper in hindsight, revealing truths they refused to see when it mattered. And each truth brings them closer to understanding the depth of the soul they wounded. What they eventually learn is that the strength of a gentle soul is not in its ability to endure pain, but in its ability to heal after the pain. You were strong not because you stayed silent, but because you protected your spirit instead of retaliating. You walked away not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You chose peace over revenge, healing over bitterness, growth over destruction. These are decisions only a strong soul can make, and now, as they witness your transformation from a distance, they begin to understand that they lost someone extraordinary. The sacredness of a gentle soul lies in its connection to truth. It cannot be stolen from, manipulated, or broken without consequence. When someone mistreats such a soul, the universe responds, not out of anger, but out of balance. The damage they inflicted becomes a lesson they cannot outrun. The love they rejected becomes a longing they cannot satisfy. The sincerity they ignored becomes the standard by which they measure every future relationship, and nothing compares. And so they find themselves searching for what they once dismissed. They look for the softness of your presence, the steadiness of your loyalty, the warmth of your heart, but what they seek cannot be replaced, replicated, or recreated. A gentle soul is irreplaceable, and once harmed, it is rarely accessible again. The sacredness remains, but the doorway closes. They are learning now, in the hardest way possible, that harming a gentle soul is not a small mistake. It is a spiritual error. And spiritual errors have a way of reshaping a person's entire life until they finally understand the value of what they lost. People who once mistreated a loyal heart always reach a moment when they begin searching for what they once took for granted. They remember the warmth that used to greet them effortlessly, the patience that held them together on their worst days, and the support that never came with conditions. They recall your presence not as something ordinary, but as something irreplaceable, yet the tragedy they now face is simple. The door they walked through carelessly, the door they slammed without thought, is no longer open for them. Life has shifted. You have grown, and the access they once abused has been permanently revoked. At the beginning, they do not realize what is happening. They assume you are simply busy, distracted, or going through a phase. They expect you to return as you always did, soft, forgiving, ready to understand, ready to give another chance. They rely on the old cycle, believing your heart is still theirs to lean on. But as days turn into weeks and silence replaces the familiarity they once enjoyed, the truth sinks into their awareness. Something within you has changed in a way that cannot be reversed. This realization hits like a slow-moving storm, not sudden, not dramatic, but steady and unavoidable. They begin to sense the emptiness created by your absence. The absence becomes a shadow in their daily life, showing up in moments where they would once turn to you for comfort, for encouragement, for grounding. They reach for their phone but stop themselves. They replay old conversations, searching for signs that this final distance was coming. And the more they looked, the clearer it becomes. The reasons were always there, but their arrogance blinded them. The loyalty you once offered so willingly becomes the very loyalty they crave. They search for the same tenderness in other people, but every connection feels shallow by comparison. No one listens with your depth. No one understands with your intuition. No one gives without expecting something in return. They encounter versions of themselves in others, people who take more than they give, who misunderstand, who overlook, who misjudge. And through these encounters, they begin to understand just how rare your heart was. Memory becomes their punishment, but also their teacher. Every moment they replay reminds them of the opportunities they wasted, the conversations they ended too quickly, the feelings they invalidated, the efforts they dismissed, the pain they ignored. They remember how easily you forgave, how gently you communicated, how sincerely you cared. And the more they remember, the more they feel the sting of regret tightening around their conscience. When they try to replace you, they fail. Not because others are inadequate, but because sincerity like yours cannot be manufactured. It cannot be replaced, only missed. The warmth of your presence cannot be replicated by someone who doesn't carry your soul. The steadiness of your loyalty cannot be faked by someone whose intentions are inconsistent. They search for echoes of you in new relationships, but echoes are hollow. Echoes do not embrace. Echoes do not heal. Echoes do not stay. The door that once remained open for them now stands closed, and this reality becomes their silent torment. They realize that you did not close it out of spite or anger. You closed it to protect your own spirit, to preserve your peace, to honor your worth. And this truth is what breaks them the most. They cannot blame you. They cannot argue with the consequences. They cannot undo what they did. They stand on the outside of a life they once had access to, knowing that the lock was forged by their own choices. The distance between you and them grows heavier each day. They begin to understand the depth of your absence only when life becomes difficult. When they feel lost and instinctively reach for someone who truly cared, they find nothing but the cold realization that they pushed away the one soul who would have stood by them no matter what. In that moment, regret becomes a wound that does not heal easily. And as they face the emptiness they created, a painful truth becomes undeniable. The loyalty they now seek is the loyalty they once shattered. The door they want to walk through again is the door they themselves destroyed. And now they must live with the knowledge that access to your soul, a privilege they never valued, is a privilege they will never regain. Regret has a quiet way of settling into a person's life, slipping into the spaces where pride once lived. It arrives without warning, without ceremony, and without mercy. It does not shout, it does not rage, it whispers. And those whispers grow louder each time they face the same kind of pain they once caused you. What once felt like just another moment to them now returns as a lesson that follows them through every part of their days. The guilt they thought they had escaped becomes a shadow trailing their steps, reminding them of the harm they inflicted on a soul that would have given them everything. When someone has wounded a heart that meant them no harm, the awareness of their wrongdoing does not strike instantly. It comes slowly, most often at times when they least expect it. A careless word from someone else triggers a memory of the words they once threw at you. A moment of abandonment from another brings forth the memory of when they walked away from you without a second thought. A lack of empathy from someone they trusted reminds them of the times you needed understanding and they offered none. These experiences form a collection of realizations that build upon one another until the truth becomes undeniable. Regret is not simply an emotion for them. It becomes a teacher. It teaches through reflection. It teaches through discomfort. It teaches through the very same wounds they once refused to acknowledge in you. They begin to understand your silence, the heaviness you carried, and the loneliness you endured. They begin to see the moments when you were hurting and they chose to look away. They start to feel the sting of being dismissed, and suddenly they recognize it as the same sting they placed upon your spirit. Each painful experience life hands them becomes a mirror, and in that mirror they don't just see their present struggles. They see the past they tried to forget. They see the moments you held on when they pushed you away. They see the times you apologized simply to save the relationship, even when they were the ones who caused the hurt. They see your tears, your patience, your longing to be understood, and with each passing day, the guilt grows heavier, because they now know how deeply that pain must have cut you. The regret deepens when they realize that you never fought back. You never retaliated. You never tried to hurt them the way they hurt you. Instead, you absorbed the pain quietly, hoping they would change, hoping they would recognize your worth, hoping they would love you the way you deserved. But those hopes were shattered by their actions. And now those same actions replay in their mind as reminders of their own cruelty. What torments them most is the clarity they now have. They see who you truly were, loyal, sincere, compassionate, forgiving. They see how you always chose them, even when they made you feel small. They see how they had someone who cared in a world full of people who only pretend to, and the realization of what they lost becomes a constant ache in their spirit. No matter how much time passes, they cannot outrun the truth that they threw away something rare. They begin to compare every new person in their life to the version of you they only now understand. When they meet someone indifferent, they remember your devotion. When they meet someone selfish, they remember your generosity. When they meet someone who doesn't stay, they remember how you stayed far longer than they deserved. That comparison becomes the quiet punishment they live with, because no one in their life carries what you carried. The guilt they feel grows stronger when they witness your growth. Seeing you heal, rise, and stand stronger without them forces them to acknowledge the pain they caused. They realize that while they left wounds on your heart, you turned those wounds into wisdom. While they caused the hurt, you transformed it into strength. While they walked away, you rebuilt yourself from the inside out. And the contrast between who you became and who they remain intensifies their regret. They once believed your heart would always be available. They once thought your forgiveness would always wait for them. But now they understand that they were wrong. That understanding becomes the quiet suffering they cannot escape. It is a sorrow hidden beneath their smiles, a weight buried beneath their laughter, a truth they keep tucked away in the corners of their mind. Regret has become the language their soul speaks now, and every lesson life hands them carries the same message. They hurt the one person who would have never hurt them. They are finally learning what your heart knew long ago, that love is sacred, and harming a sacred heart comes with consequences that echo through time. People often take kindness for granted until life introduces them to its absence. The same individuals who once dismissed your sincerity now walk through situations where authenticity is scarce and loyalty is conditional. They encounter people who mirror their own past behavior, cold, indifferent, self-centered, and with every encounter they begin to taste the very bitterness they once served to you. This is when the truth starts to unravel in their mind. The way they treated you was not only unfair, it was a tragic misunderstanding of your worth. At first, they do not connect their new experiences to their past actions. They assume the world has simply become harsher, or that others are naturally unkind. But slowly, the pieces begin to assemble into a pattern. Someone ignores their messages, and the memory of ignoring yours flashes back. Someone dismisses their feelings, and suddenly they recall the moments your tears went unnoticed. Someone makes them feel replaceable, and it becomes impossible to deny how easily they once treated you as optional. The contrast between what you gave and what they now receive becomes painful. Your kindness once felt ordinary to them because they were so used to it. Your patience seemed normal because it came so naturally from your heart. Your presence felt guaranteed because you showed up even when they didn't. But now they find themselves surrounded by people who do not possess your warmth, your depth, or your sincerity. These new relationships expose the irreplaceable quality of the connection they once dismissed. They begin to crave the gentleness you offered effortlessly, not because they suddenly became saints, but because life has placed them in environments where kindness is a rare currency. They see now that not everyone listens with the intention to understand. Not everyone forgives with grace. Not everyone values a soul that tries to heal rather than hurt. What they once treated as ordinary now reveals itself as extraordinary, almost divine in its purity. In the silence of their own thoughts, they revisit old memories, moments they once brushed off. They remember how you understood their silence without needing an explanation. They recall the way you comforted them with words that soothed rather than harmed. They think about the countless times you chose patience when others would have chosen anger. And with each memory, their heart sinks a little deeper. The realization becomes sharper when they interact with people who seem charming at first, but lack emotional depth. These new faces offer temporary excitement, but no emotional sanctuary. Conversations feel shallow, connections feel unstable, commitment feels absent. It becomes clear that what you once provided was not simply affection, it was safety. And safety, they now understand, is not something easily found. They try to convince themselves that they can find another version of you, but life quickly shows them otherwise. Every attempt to replace what was lost only leads to disappointment. No one mirrors your empathy. No one carries your intuition. No one looks at them with the same gentle understanding. They begin to realize that the reason they cannot find you in others is because souls like yours are rare. Souls like yours do not repeat themselves across people. Souls like yours leave a permanent imprint. With every failed connection, they feel the weight of what they ruined. Each moment of indifference from another person reminds them of the times you tried to make them feel loved. Each cold response reflects the coldness they once gave you. Each broken promise mirrors the promises they broke without caring how deeply it hurt you. This is the karmic truth they now face. Life will always return to us the energy we give. And what they are receiving now is not cruelty, it is reflection. Reflection of their past actions. Reflection of their dismissiveness. Reflection of the love they mishandled. They start to see that you were not just someone who loved them. You were a blessing they never recognized. Your presence was healing, even when they didn't know they needed healing. Your love was a gift they were not mature enough to honor. Your loyalty was a treasure they were careless enough to lose. Now, as they sit with the emptiness that comes from superficial connections and fading attention, the truth becomes undeniable. They are being confronted with the same emotional starvation they once caused you. And this confrontation isn't meant to break them. It is meant to show them who you truly were. Only now do they see the depth of your value. Only now do they understand the weight of what they lost. And only now do they realize that your absence is not just a space in their life. It is a silence that echoes louder than any words ever could. The harshest realizations in life often arrive when a person stands alone in the ruins of what they destroyed. It is in that loneliness, in that silence, that the truth finally reaches them. They pushed away the very soul that would have protected them, defended them, chosen them, and stood with them through every storm. They begin to understand that the love they shattered was not simply affection, it was shelter, and now, without that shelter, every hardship feels colder, every disappointment feels heavier, and every loss feels sharper. A heart like yours does not come into someone's life by accident. It arrives like a quiet blessing, offering steadiness in a world full of uncertainty. But when someone mishandles such a blessing, life eventually allows the consequences to unfold. They begin to see that the loyalty they betrayed was the loyalty they needed all along. The devotion they overlooked was the devotion that would have carried them through their darkest seasons. The presence they neglected was the presence that would have fought for them, not against them. At first they try to deny this realization. Pride convinces them that they made the right decisions. Ego tells them they can find someone better, someone easier, someone new. But reality dismantles those illusions quickly. New people do not love with your depth. New faces do not understand with your intuition. New connections do not stand firm with your strength. They eventually look around and discover that every person who enters their life feels temporary, inconsistent, or emotionally distant. And slowly they begin to ask themselves a question they once avoided. What if the person I hurt was the one person I was meant to keep? The answer is not comforting. It arrives like a weight on their chest, heavy and undeniable. They realize that you did not walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because you were done being broken. You walked away because you finally understood your worth, something they never took the time to understand. And the truth of their loss becomes even more painful when they witness your transformation. They see you becoming stronger, wiser, more peaceful. They see your spirit healing and your confidence returning. They see your glow rising from the ashes of what they shattered. This is the moment their regret deepens into sorrow. They realize that while you were the one crying in the beginning, they are the ones crying now. While you were the one begging for understanding, they are the ones begging life for a second chance. While you were the one trying to hold everything together, they are now watching everything around them fall apart. The very stability they once found in you has become the very instability in their own life. What hurts them most is the recognition that you were never replaceable. They had someone who would have guarded their heart, supported their dreams and defended their character. They had someone who prayed for them, believed in them and stood by them when they didn't deserve it. You were the kind of soul who fought for love even when you were tired, and now they are left with the painful truth that no one else will ever fight for them the way you did. This realization does not fade, it grows. It grows each time someone betrays them. It grows each time someone lies to them. It grows each time they feel unseen or unheard. Every disappointment becomes a reminder of the one soul they lost forever. Every hurt becomes a reflection of how deeply they once hurt you. It isn't demonstrative. They finally understand the value of what they destroyed. You were their anchor. You were their peace. You were the voice of reason, the safe place, the gentle presence that kept them grounded. Losing you wasn't just losing a relationship. They lost the person who would have carried them through every hardship with unwavering loyalty. Now, as life exposes the emptiness left behind, they face a truth they can never escape. They damaged the one soul that would have loved them without end. The one soul that would have stayed. The one soul that would have protected them in ways they didn't even know they needed. And nothing in their life will ever give them that kind of love again. Healing changes a person in ways that are difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. The pain they once caused you did not stay as pain forever. It became the soil from which your strength grew. And as your spirit began to rise, the contrast between your growth and their stagnation grew wider, sharper, and more undeniable. While you stepped into a new season of clarity and resilience, they stepped into a season of consequences. What they thought they did to weaken you only weakened them, and what they believed would break you only built you. The harm they inflicted became a turning point in your life, but in theirs, it became a weight they could not escape. People who hurt a pure soul never imagine that one day they will stand in the shadow of their own actions. Yet this is precisely what life delivers. As you find your footing, as you rediscover your worth, as you reclaim your peace, they begin to feel the effects of the damage they caused. Not because you wished it, not because you sought revenge, but because life has a way of teaching through reflection. The pain they once ignored now becomes the pain they cannot avoid. Their world begins to feel heavier in places that used to feel effortless. The relationships they try to build crumble in their hands, not because those people are cruel, but because their spirit is now burdened with unresolved guilt. They carry the weight of knowing they harmed someone who never intended to harm them. They carry the memory of moments where you begged for honesty, for effort, for empathy, moments they met with indifference or cruelty, and now that you have found healing, they are left to face what they tried to run from, themselves. The consequences do not come as dramatic punishments. They come as realizations. They see you becoming stronger without them, and it stings. They see you smiling again, and the smile they once mocked becomes the smile they miss the most. They see you surrounded by peace, and suddenly peace becomes the one thing they can't seem to find. Every step you take toward a better life becomes a reminder of the steps they never took when you were trying to love them. Healing makes you unrecognizable to the versions of them that once belittled your worth. You no longer beg. You no longer chase. You no longer shrink yourself to fit into the small spaces they offered. The power they believed they had over your heart has dissolved, and what remains is a person they can no longer control, influence, or reach. That shift terrifies them because, deep down, they know your healing is the proof that their damage did not win. This is when their regret evolves into a kind of sorrow that lingers in everything they do. They may hide it from the world, people often do, but they cannot hide it from their own conscience. Every night before sleep dulls the noise of the day, memories return. Memories of the times you tried, memories of the times you forgave, memories of the times you stayed when you had every reason to walk away, and the heaviness they feel in those moments is the echo of your past suffering, transformed into their present lesson. Your rise becomes the mirror through which they see the truth of their own fall. They begin to understand that the damage they caused did not weaken you, it awakened you. It revealed to you the strength you always had but never fully recognized. And now, the life you are building stands in stark contrast to the life they are unraveling. You grew from the wound, they withered from the guilt. This is the spiritual symmetry of the universe. Not revenge, not punishment, balance. You were the one who cried, and now they are the ones who cannot sleep. You were the one who begged for compassion, and now they are the ones searching for it from people who cannot offer it. You were the one who felt abandoned, and now they are the ones feeling forgotten. Life has circled back, not to destroy them, but to show them what they refused to see when your heart was in their hands. In the end, your healing did not just restore you, it exposed them, and the truth they must now live with is simple. The pain they caused became the pain that follows them, while the strength you gained became the strength that carries you into a future they will never again be invited to share. In the quiet unfolding of life, truth always reveals itself. The soul they once mishandled, dismissed, and underestimated has become the very soul they cannot forget, not because you seek their attention or their apology, but because your healing has illuminated the contrast between who you became and who they chose to remain. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your strength exposes their weakness. Your peace exposes their unrest. And while they wrestle with regret, you walk forward with a heart that has learned its own worth. The story was never about their power to break you. It was always about your ability to rise. Pain shaped you, but it did not define you. Loss wounded you, but it did not end you. What they meant for harm became the doorway through which you discovered your resilience. You transformed every tear into wisdom, every betrayal into clarity, and every betrayal into a step toward freedom. They are now living with the consequences of their choices, and you are living with the blessings of your healing. This is the quiet justice life brings, not through revenge, but through alignment. You are aligned with strength, purpose, and peace. They are aligned with the echoes of the damage they created. Let this truth settle gently within you. You were never the weak one. You were never the burden. You were never the problem. You were the blessing they weren't ready to receive, the loyalty they weren't mature enough to honor, the love they weren't wise enough to protect. And now, as they face the ruins of their choices, you are stepping into a future built by your courage, your faith, and your refusal to stay broken. They're realizing too late what they lost. But you are realizing just in time who you truly are.